the left. I'm sorry, did I give away the surprise?
Don't have one of those.
It's kind of, okay, we're on the air. Good evening, folks. I'm going to call to order the workshop of August 20th, 2018. First item on the list is regarding tax acquired and city-owned property. And Miss Jody Dorisco is presenting today. So, Jody, come on down.
Good evening. So, the Tax Acquired Committee had a meeting on July 26, 2018, and are recommending 5 properties for disposition, and also asking for an amendment to 2 properties that were previously approved for disposition with conditions by the City Council on March 5th of 2018. The 7 properties combined have a total of $89,704 and 50 cents in property taxes and CDBG balances owed to the city. I included in the packet a department review form on each of the properties, a tax statement, as well as when the last payment was made on each of the properties. And the committee is recommending that we dispose of these by sealed bid at this time.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open up to the council. Council, are there any questions for Mrs. Dorisco?
I have one question. I'm sorry.
I'll come right back to you, Councilor Lozani. Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When you talk about sealed bid, will they have a minimum bid?
Yes. It will include back taxes owed, fees for any lien filings, legal fees, and CDBG loans that are due to the city.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Zanya?
We had a discussion about putting some limits on how we wanted to ensure that these got sold under a certain amount of time. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes, you're on the right path. Yes.
Thank you. Are we still following through on that? Because we had a discussion about it earlier, thinking that it might be a problem.
Mr. Dorisco?
Are you referring to the statute of limitations that we discussed?
Yes.
Yes, that's why the sealed bid process is more attractive.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
On the sealed bid process, I'm sorry, can you just describe for the council the time frame, i.e. is it sealed bid, from the announcement to the opening and the awarding?
Sure. There are no legal requirements. The legal requirement is solely that you place a legal notice and make the public aware of the properties that the city is going to sell. So it would basically be a list of each property, what the balances are due. It would tell them, you know, basically follow Derek's sealed bid process, that they would be submitting bids to him by a certain date, and then he would hold a bid opening here at City Hall that will be publicized. Usually those will go in the newspaper, the website, Maine Municipal, and any other means that the city sees fit for each scenario.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, of all these properties that you've made mention, is there anybody currently living on those properties?
I don't believe in these properties that there is. These are all vacant.
Councilor Hayes?
I guess I was just looking at the first one, and I see that minimum bid is essentially $12,000. Am I reading that correct?
393 Garfield Road is $23,839.08. 12 Patton
sorry.
Street is $11,981.36.
All right, I guess I wasn't looking at the first one.
Skipped one.
Okay, let's look at
Second one. Second was 12,000.
Paul Patton?
Okay, I guess whatever's grand total due, that's the minimum bid on each?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there any other questions or comments from the council? Councilor Titus?
Yeah, I just wanted to make the comment too, in part of your narrative here, you talked about the 2 previous addresses that we had approved. And I guess I want to find out, first of all, has there been any action on those 2? And there was some mention in here about how it may be a little of a detriment to have that has to build in 1 year provision that was on there. Have we seen any action on the first 2 that we did?
There has not been interest in those 2 properties that were previously approved because of that condition.
Because they'd be required to build within 1 year.
Yeah.
So are we thinking that we need to make a change there? You need to have us propose changing something for those first 2? Or maybe this council has no desire to just keep them on the books and hope that somebody wants to build in a year?
We would like to ask council to reconsider at this time and to drop that requirement, and we could place them out to sealed bid with these other properties that we're bringing forth.
I'd like this council to talk about it, because I know that when we voted for this, I was one of the only ones that said no to that, but everybody else seemed to be in favor of it. So if we could just figure out the reasons why we want to do that, and if we want to continue it.
We do have to actually discuss this and give staff direction so they can bring this forth to the next council meeting for actual official action on the properties as well as the language. So I'll open up to a little conversation on that point, just to kind of clarify. The last, I can't remember, I think it was February, I could be wrong, we had 2 vacant pieces of land in New Auburn that the city owned, tax acquired, we put for sale. We had a condition on that, which was that the purchaser had to build a proper building on that land within 12 months of acquisition. That is preventing people from buying it, no interest. We haven't had any come through, is that correct?
You can run into additional issues with bank financing, who usually require title insurance. So there are some additional hoops to jump through on tax foreclosures.
So bring it back to the council. Councilor Fournier?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So that means that the 12-month period is not enough time? Or we may not, it's conceivable that somebody may not be able to get everything all together within a 12-month period of time?
They would have to have their own capital.
Yeah, okay. And then is it our intent that we're going to hold up the other potential sales and include it with the 2 vacant lots, or go forward with these?
Can you talk about procedure on this? Do we actually have to have an official council vote as a scheduled item in next meeting? Or can we just give you direction right now to go and do what you have to do to get these listed?
It will need to come to your next meeting for an official vote.
So,
Okay, thank you.
So
Councilor Walker.
I think I would suggest that we change what we did the last time and go to the sealed bid and forget that 1 year, quote that we put in there. And the thing was not so much that they would build the house in 1 year, but they would have to permit in 1 year. That was pretty much what that was designed to. But I'm willing to say that, we remove that, and if it takes us 2 meetings to do it, then we do it.
I think we can do 2 separate issues at the same meeting as well. I agree. I mean, just a little history on this one, too. I mean, I agree. Conceptually, those are beautiful downtown lots that should be built on, and if I was shopping right now, yeah, I would look at that seriously, and it's a good investment. And the long-term tax implication for the city obviously is greater on someone buying land and building and developing it, improving it, versus using it as overflow parking. When I think Councilor Walker is one of your biggest concerns, too, when you brought this up.
Right, and we reserve the right to refuse all bids anyways.
Yeah.
We do.
And the other thing, too, is I was hoping the committee would look at these strategically. If it's a lot that's in the middle of New Auburn that was, if somebody bought it and let the grass grow up on it, it would look ugly, then I would think we'd keep it. I mean, I was thinking this was a lot, strategic work was done here, that lots and houses that were for sale had no real value or strategic value to the city, so we should just let them go. But if that's not the case, maybe we should think about any of those that somebody might think, well, no, this is on the corner. I see it every time I drive by. I don't want to see it just a unmowed, grassy area. Okay, well, let's think about keeping it in.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in the staff survey sheet, there's several questions in there about the city, to the committee, reviewing first whether or not there's a benefit towards the city for keeping this land city-owned. I think for just one of your,
Yeah.
obviously, the
I think that
reasons
we already went through that process, and these properties we're talking about had no value, so.
Yes.
In this case, we should, change that provision and allow just somebody to buy it, own it, get it on the tax rolls.
Councilor Lasagna?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is actually, I was confused. This is what I was driving at in terms of what we had agreed on before that was holding us back was the 1-year limit. And I agree with the other counselors that I think it's time to reconsider that.
Do I have kind of a head nod on that? And we feel safe bringing that in and
Yep.
having discussion? Yep.
Right.
Very good then. I think, Mrs. DeRisco, please bring both the previous 2 lots that were already dispositioned for sale, along with these lots, to our next council meeting so we can take appropriate action. Last thing I will say is I'd like to see, if possible, city staff deems it, financially prudent, a little bit more on the way of advertising some of these lots, not just the absolute legal minimum, which obviously has to get done, but also looking at online, social media, even some ad space in the Press Herald, in order to kind of build some awareness. I just know from kind of firsthand experience in Auburn, a lot of people are very, very savvy, and this is what they do. They look in the paper, but that's probably a small fraction of a percentage of overall population. I think it would be nice and potentially give some opportunity for people that wouldn't know about this process, that it's there, that they could actually see it, learn about it, and if they couldn't take advantage of some of these, maybe they could take advantage of something in the future too. So, if we could find it somewhere to get the word out a little bit greater to the community, I think it would be great, and the community at large.
One last comment, Mr. Mayor. I feel the same way. I wanted to reiterate, because that was one thing that bothered me, that some folks thought that when we did the sealed bid, there was a little tiny notice in the paper, all legal and all, but unless you were a developer or somebody who was really interested, you had no idea. So I wouldn't mind making sure that these are advertised heavily so that anybody who may have a desire to put in a sealed bid can and knows about it at least. So it doesn't feel like it was under the sneak it by something, Make it clear what we're trying to do. So we'll get more bids too.
We can definitely explore more opportunities utilizing our Facebook, potentially Craigslist or
On
some
our
of the other.
website, clearly, on the front page
pages.
news, check out our properties for sale type thing so that it's clear.
And I think advertising in Portland is a really good idea so that people can
Excellent, yeah.
see what real estate costs here.
Right now, we're a target for those that want to
We
move
are.
out of Auburn, out of Portland and come up this way.
That's
So
who I
that
sold
would be
my
an
house to.
opportunity. Yeah.
Dangle the hook a little. Well, great. Thank you very much. I think we're in agreement.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the hard work on this, and we look forward to seeing the other 4,800 properties.
My pleasure.
Slight exaggeration.
Yeah, there's a
Not
lot
that
of them
many.
out there.
This is not the 4,800. Thank you. Next, I'd like to have the Assistant City Manager, say that 3 times fast, Mr. Kroll, come and speak about Chestnut Street closure.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Rosemary's going to try to pull up the map for you, but you should have it in your packets. Just as a reminder for folks that during the CDBG budget process, the CDBG group looked at all requests that came in to their for funding for this upcoming fiscal year. Closing of Chestnut Street at the city's property boundary lines was listed as one of the projects. $125,000 was allocated to work on this project. The goal with this project will be to eliminate the cut-through traffic that takes place on Chestnut Street, which will hopefully push motorists to Union Street bypass, which is how it was designed. In the comprehensive plan, it references the need to move motorists onto Union Street bypass and out of neighborhoods. The goal with this street would be to do exactly that. But it also provides safety for those using the parks. We have a lot of adults and children that go from the down in the gully where the basketball courts are to the backside of the park and access this green space consistently throughout the day. So you'll see in the map, you'll see where Chestnut Street comes down. You'll see the highlighted green area is the area that we're looking to remove all that pavement and create some a green space. And what this will also do is allow for some activities for some of the younger kids that are at the Pal Center to stay up closer to the building. There's times when there are a lot of older kids that are down using the basketball court. It would be nice to have a little space for them right up next to the building, so they're closer to adult supervision. The other piece that we're looking to do is actually move the playground equipment from where it is over to the front in this area. That also provides for potential use on the side of the building. The rec department is making enhancements to the field in the back, the Chestnut Field. That's the field that's being used for lacrosse, it's being used for football. They're making some enhancements there, and really, after those enhancements, we should not put the ice rink out back there moving forward after they've made those enhancements to that field. So our goal will be able to put the ice rink somewhere closer up near the building. We have several, I don't know, I think the Palace Center has over 60 or 70 pairs of skates, and the kids use that throughout the winter. And being able to have access to that nearby the building would be good. You can also see in the diagram the space to the right, if you're looking at the diagram now to the right of the Palace Center. That's the current lot that's there currently. So we have a parking lot that's there, that's already designed. That's how that will continue. And then to the left of the Palace Center, along where the garden is, that's just a connector road. That's actually connected, that's Walnut. It goes back to Walnut Street, this is in the back. And so that needs to continue. That access needs to continue. So if somebody was to come in towards the Palace Center, they can continue taking that road up to Walnut Street and loop around. So those who live back there can still gain that access. Several people who live back there will use that. It's a dirt path, but they'll use that to drive out on. So that's the goal with this project. We have talked with folks from, we had a group come in to take a look at Safe Streets walkability study. They took a look at this area, they support this project. And then we also had conversations with Complete Streets. We have not gone on their agenda yet. We wanted to get it before you first, but this, if you look at the direction of Complete Streets Committee, this meets all what they're looking to do as far as connecting walkability. The sidewalk on this, on Chestnut, will continue. We still want to make sure that those living in one neighborhood will be able to access the other neighborhood and keep that walkability. That's it. I can answer any questions.
Council, have any questions or comments?
I do.
Councilor Walker?
The road to the left of the building, looking at the plan that we can see in front of us.
Right.
You've got, it looks like you've got around 18, 20 parking spaces going in there.
Yes, sir.
What are we gonna do with the road? Are we actually gonna make it so it's better to travel around that curve back out?
Right. That'll be paved. So that'll be paved right up through.
Because you know, as you come in there right now, it's awful.
It washes out often, so, yeah.
Is it going to be paved all the way through your
Well-
parking lot, then back that 90-degree, back to the,
Yeah, the goal will be to see what the prices all come in at. That might be more of the reclaimed pavement, something that's a little better than what we have right there now that doesn't wash out with weather.
very good. Any other questions, comments from the council? Councilor Titus?
No, I just, when we have to bring this before council, I would assume, to close the road. That's the first step?
That's correct.
And when do you perceive that happening?
That'll be happening within, if we've got green light, we're moving forward, then that'll be your next action. And I would suggest that probably takes place within your September agenda packets.
Because I have a concern only because I understand what we're trying to do, but I also think it's hard to know the impacts of the people in that neighborhood until everybody's known about it and can see what that means. Road closures always bother me because if it's inconveniencing people that much, we need to know what we're trading off, I guess, you know. I understand the safety aspect of it, but I also understand that there's a lot of people in that neighborhood that have lived there and expect a certain, you know, travelability. And if there's any way to make the road safer rather than closing it, I would rather do that if it's important to the people in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I think for many of the motorists that are going through, they're less within that neighborhood and more people using it as a cut through.
That are not in
Coming
the
down
neighborhood?
Turner Street, and rather than coming out onto the bypass, they're taking this as a cut through to get back to another neighborhood. And then they're looping, they're fishtailing from across Hampshire Street, to then get to Court Street back up Golf Hill.
Yeah, I
So
see
they
that.
can do that and avoid the entire bypass.
I actually
Yes.
did that today.
You did on this road?
Yeah, I did.
See,
I
okay.
did. And I was trying to get over to Grove Street, and I don't travel the neighborhood all that often. I'm like, and I just cut through, and I'm like, hey, look, Pal Center. And I just wasn't thinking, but yeah, it's cut through versus a destination sometimes, so.
Okay,
But I
well-
did stop, and I did take a look at the project, and I could envision how this would make a very comprehensive park. This street has always cut off Pettingill Park into two sections. And that could be, and I'd like to see, was there any part of the master plan or Pettingill Park plan from the 90s, does anyone remember, Leroy, that addressed Chestnut Street at all? Was it never addressed?
I don't think so. It was always talked about, but it was never closed off. Part of the reason why I think it wasn't way back then is we had stores on Turner Street
Right.
and only one or two on Gulf and High. So they wanted the people to be able to go both ways to the stores. Now you've only really got gals, or whatever it's called today, but, so you're gonna have some people that are not gonna like this closed. But one of the things I would like to ask of you, could you give us some kind of a number? And it's more because I wanna be able to play with this in my head, of how many kids and people you feel that are crossing that street.
Yeah, it really depends on right now, when school starts back up, there'll be anywhere between 60 and 90 kids at the Palace Center every day. But what you don't see a lot of times is in the evening, when you have, that basketball court is full. We have a lot of people down there. And then we have kids that are kind of going back and forth. And then when we have a football practice or a lacrosse practice going on, there's really no space anywhere. You have just cars everywhere. And so we know in the future, and we've been looking at properties, when we talk about properties that are coming up and available, we know that there's one on the back side here that would make sense for a good parking lot for access to this field for lacrosse and football practices. It's just it's right in where it needs to be, and it's a good space. So we'll be continuing to look at those. But as far as numbers, I mean, we can try to get some sense. I think and maybe I can connect with the group that was in for the Safe Streets and Walkability Study to see if they have any numbers of how many pedestrians are we seeing in this area. I know they've done some studies. I think AvCog was part of that. We can see what they might have pulled in for numbers.
Councilor Zanya.
Piggybacking on what Councilor Titus said, what's the response been to the neighborhood? Some people, it looks like instead of being able to turn left and go do what they want to do or turn right, they're going to have to kind of go around the block. Some of the homes there.
Right, so if you I guess for the biggest impact that you would see would be the houses directly to the right of the Palace Center that you can see in that lot. So if that individual was planning on, say, accessing Gowles, that person would need to come out onto Winter Street, go to Summer, come out on the bypass, and then drive over to Gowles.
Do they know that?
Well, that's part of the process.
Great.
So
Okay.
obviously any of the abutters will be notified through a letter, and they'll be certainly advised. But that's, the closing of that street will become that public process, and making sure that people are aware of it. I can tell you that we have individuals that are in the apartments to the left and on Chestnut Street. That these are a lot of the moms that have their kids come to the Palace Center that have asked, can we do something about the cut-through traffic because of this high speeds? Even though it's a short road, they rev up and they go through there pretty quickly, and they're concerned that their child's going to get hit.
Thank you.
And that is a safety consideration, I think.
I
Councilor
have
Fornier?
seen that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have seen that. I've spent a lot of my years there when it was Webster School in that area there. And I agree, it's a dangerous situation, and it's only going to get busier. I've noticed a lot of people calling me complaining about certain streets being used as a cut-through by trucks, delivery trucks, that kind of thing. And I think that a concerted effort to start really honing in on that and starting to reduce the cut-through-ism that's going on in the city is just going to make it safer for everybody all around. It might be a little inconvenient for the people living in the area, but if they feel that this is a safe place, because there are a lot of tiny little streets around there, and so I would like to be able to see us really tighten it up, and personally, I'm in favor of blocking the street off.
Councilor, actually Young, get Councilor.
So we'll go through the process. We'll, it will be how the people that own property on the street see that their value will be diminished, and they will object. But what are the people that just rent there? Are we going to listen to them too?
Well, I'd like to interject. I'm not sure if saying their value will diminish is an appropriate claim, because being in proximity to green space, contiguous green space, such as this would be, could actually be as an asset and increase property valuation.
Okay, we can argue that
Okay,
point.
but I wanted to stay away from direct claims on one way or the other without.
But they have the right to present their argument.
Yes.
And, you know, if you live on a street and it's discontinued, then you've lost something, perhaps.
What we do, when we look at these, the municipal officers have to determine whose property abuts the road, and the reason for considering the damages from the abutting property owners is because of the reduction in fair market value of their property as a result of a loss of municipally maintained road. In this case, if the road is being discontinued just on abutting property that's owned by the municipality, the people on that road will not lose the municipally maintained road, so that's probably the case that there will be, in fact, no loss of value.
Okay, so, but the property owners are the ones that will be coming to the hearing, right?
They'll be given notice, and the board is one that determines the damages, and I believe the damages in the case of the scenario we have now, that there would not be any damages.
Okay, no other further questions? I'm gonna,
Just
Councilor
two
Titus?
comments. One of them is, I think we do have to consider everybody that's on that side, like Gowles and all that, and that people that are using Chestnut Street to get to that side, there's a pizza joint. Hampshire Street is supposedly, we're trying to grow that as kind of an economic place eventually, but now we're shutting off a whole neighborhood. They'd have to go to Union down and up to get there, so we have to consider that. And the other one is, how about the snow plowing? The way the design looks like, it's no, I guess you're going to dump snow in the new green space, or how would the snow plowing work when you've got two sides that are stopped?
So we worked with Public Works, and they've assessed this. They have actually did the drawings of this to make sure this was going to work within their plowing. A lot of their plowing currently exists where they are coming down Walnut and coming through that lot anyway. But yeah, you would actually see a decent amount of snow on both sides of this green space.
Yes, you
know,
would,
they'll build in space to
They'll
make sure
stop
they
it
have
right
some.
there and pile it on the green space?
Yeah. And just to go back with the other piece about neighborhood connections, so we are, so these neighborhoods also still have the Denison connecting. So there is a neighborhood connection other than the bypass, and that would be Denison.
And you're saying Denison will clearly goes over to Webster and, where is it?
You come down Hampshire Street.
Way up there, that's further up, you might as well go down Union Street.
Well, it's on the other side of the park, so.
Right up in here, see. All right, so I mean, that's the kind of impacts that we're talking about. I understand what we're trying to do, and Council Fornia, what you were saying is true, but are we going to inconvenience an entire neighborhood? Yeah, but can we find ways to make that safer, speed bumps, narrowing, other ways to make that little, make it so that if somebody who's going through that way has to go at 20 miles an hour tops, or 15 because of the speed bumps, or something.
Well, we also got to look at, and I'm a proponent of this, but the idea of having that contiguous green space, and because right now it is, and I don't know if there's any study or anything that could show an increase in utilization of the park if it was contiguous all the way from Ingersoll all the way back up. That's an interesting concept, because right now we do have two distinctive separate parks divided by Chestnut. And as Chestnut is a barrier, roads are barriers. And so I can see where it can, be a conduit for travel and cut through and commerce. And I also can see where it can be a barrier to recreation and enjoyability and livability.
Was there another way to access that park at all? No other way to shut it off so that you don't, Chestnut Street's really not part of that whole area? I mean.
Is there another way to not shut the road
Yeah.
off? Is that what you're saying? And for safety? I mean, it would take, it's still a cut through. So you're gonna, there's some calming things that you can do to try to make it so that a vehicle will choose not to go through a certain street. We haven't been very successful in a lot of neighborhoods. So, there are these, if you look at even Hampshire Street, the redesign of Hampshire Street was designed so that vehicles would be slower through there. That's why some of the parking was done the way it's done, so that, it would feel like you'd have to go slower going through there. I think the mayor's making a good point regarding continuous space from the parks. And so if you look at, one thing that we had Maine DOT come out, it was towards the end of the winter, because there was still a little bit of snow on the ground. We looked at how do we also make it more convenient to connect Pettingill Park with Chestnut Street Park, because you currently have Denison that divides it. And for many, to take those 3 flights of stairs up one side and 3 flights of stairs back down the other side, it might as well, for kids in that neighborhood, that might as well be walking to Walmart. They're just not going to access that. So how do we design it in a way so that there is better access of that entire campus? And now you're looking at a campus that goes from Hasty, that goes to the ball fields, which then goes to the soccer/football fields, which then goes to the basketball courts. And so this is I see this as that beginning phase of connecting that entire campus.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Councilor Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You mentioned about how much money you got from CDBG, and then you talked about paving the parking lot. It's going to take quite a bit of money to reclaim that front and close that road. Where are we going to find the money to pave those roads or reclaim them?
So we have $125,000 to do the entire project. So that's whatever we can get from that is what we'll be able to accomplish. But obviously the first piece will be ensuring that the closure of Chestnut Street's done in a safe way. So motorists do not have access, that it's signed and designed well so that vehicles know that they're not gaining that access through, or vehicles that are coming down from Webster Street onto Chestnut know that the road, it's a continuous road that goes up towards Walnut. So that's the goal in that process. What's completed, we'll know more once, once we have the green light that we can close the road, then we can go out for a bid and come up with exactly what we can cover.
And then also you talked about connecting the campus of all those different parts of the fields and things. Is there a plan already in the works or already done that explains more in depth of what you're just mentioning tonight?
No, what we did was we connected with DOT to find out if there is, because Denison Street is part of DOT's purview, I guess. And so we connected with them to see if there was state funding that might have been available for us. Really, what we had hoped would be, is there a way to actually put a nice tunnel that goes from one side of the park to the other park, and so it's a nice walkable tunnel that goes through. And that's the funding that was looked at. They did not have that funding. It would be something that you'd have to look at for federal funding under parks and green space funding that might be able to come available. And that's connecting walkways, trails, and so it would come under a federal funding opportunity.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, and thank you and very much for that, Mr. Assistant City Manager, and we'll move on. If I could have, next on the agenda is the fiscal year 18 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Grant allocation with interim Chief of Police, Jason Moen.
Moen, yes,
Moen.
sir.
Got it, okay. Thank you.
I want to bring council up to speed on a direct allocation that we received from the Edward Byrne grant this year. Allocations are based on violent crime rate. Last year, we did not receive an allocation. This year, our crime rate dipped up a little bit, which then made us eligible for this allocation. And the JAG funding is utilized in specific target areas, including it centers around officer safety, equipment, and community policing. And the 3 target areas that we're going to be hitting with this money this year, under community policing, is the purchase of our department challenge coins. And then for Under police motorcycles, we're going to be upgrading our emergency lighting systems for those. The current systems we have are dated with very little lighting on them. And we actually had an officer that almost got hit this weekend on one of the motorcycles due to that lighting system. So we're going to be upgrading those systems as well. And the third area is the purchase of a vehicle kennel for the canine vehicle. That vehicle is due to be traded out next year. And we're taking our current canine vehicle and moving it down to our selective enforcement officer, who also has animal control officer duties. So that kennel will stay with that vehicle. And then with the new vehicle, we'll require a new kennel because the old selective enforcement officer vehicle is a 2010 Ford Expedition that's being traded out as well. And that cage doesn't fit in the new Explorers. So we'll be using that money to offset the purchase of a new cage. So part of this, accepting this allocation, is a review by the governing body. So this is why I wanted to bring you folks up to speed on those allocations and what we're going to be using them for.
Thank you very much. Council, any comments, questions? Councilor Lasagna?
Just a quick one. Chief Moen, what are challenge coins?
Department challenge coins, they have our logo on one side and a picture of our police memorial on the other side. And what we do is we have a program where citizens that do heroic acts or somehow assist our officers in their daily duties can be nominated to receive a coin by those officers. What happens is those officers can, one, give them a coin on the spot, and then they'll submit a memo explaining why they issued the coin, and then they're issued a replacement. Or the officers can send a memo up nominating a person to receive the coin, and then that coin is presented to them by the chief of police.
Great, thank you.
It's a fascinating history. If you get a chance to research challenge coins, and they originated in the military, and that's where they originated for me, and they are more coveted than any type of medal, almost any type of medal one could ever earn. And I know I have mine in pride. If you ever want to see a bunch of different examples, go to Liz Allen's office or Assistant City Manager's office. He has a jar of them now on your desk, which probably need to be displayed a little bit differently. But they're phenomenal, and they're all unique. So.
Great, thank you.
And I've got about 100 in my office of different agencies if you want to see those as well.
Okay, now we're having a challenge coin counting contest. We'll be on the 3rd October of the month. It'll be fun.
Okay.
Councilor Titus.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Chief Moen, I love these grants, I always do, but I had a question. Is there any matching funds that we have to, is this 100%?
It's 100% by the feds, there's no matching grant.
And then the other question I want, and I love that, I mean, I really do it, when we're going to buy anything anyway, we can save money. But one question I had on the canine part, the cage, or the kennel. Now, I understand that the forfeited drug money has specific uses, so specific that one of the only uses we really have is our canine unit. Can be supported by and equipment needed, and that can be used with the drug forfeiture money. Last time I checked, we had a lot of money still left as forfeiture money available. Can we use this, that money to do this 4,700 and then use this money for something else that we might need? Would that make sense?
We could, however, our drug forfeiture money is dwindling some, and we're primarily the drug forfeiture money has been used for funding training and maintenance of the dogs. So if we can use this money to supplement that, that'll help us with our position and keeping some of that funding in the account.
Now, I think, how much were you showing those drug forfeiture accounts? Last time I looked, it was, what, 15,000 or something like that? How much was in there? There was 2 or 3 of them. Around 20,000 that was in there right now. So you're saying that's earmarked and to be used in the next 12 months?
Not in the next 12 months. We keep a little bit of a fund balance in there for any upcoming projects that we might need also. But also, we have a canine that's going to be retiring at the end of this year, and costs to replace those canines run anywhere from $6,000 to $8,000.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that we have funding in there to be able to replace that dog when it's retired.
Okay, I just like to stretch these dollars. I love to see them when they come, but I also wish I hope that we stretch them out as best we can.
Sure.
Thank you.
No further questions or comments, except I do have a black lab you can have for free.
Sometimes or all the time?
All the time. All the time. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda, City Manager Peter Crichton is going to provide information regarding the strategic planning initiative. I'd like to just say it's great to have the city manager here and not in his alter ego, Max Hedrum. Remember the old Coke commercials? There's something for Max Headroom, right? Going back to the 80s on that one.
For the movie.
Old movie. No, but that was a bad movie, that's right.
Mayor, councilors, it's good to be here. My apologies for not being present last meeting in person. I appreciate what the staff did that day. They were able, in the time that they had within 7 hours or so, to be able to get me connected. I could not hear much of the conversation after the workshops, however, so that's why you didn't hear me participate much after that. I am here to continue the discussion on the strategic plan. I don't want to start with that. Assistant City Manager's already covered that very well. This is a document that, just as background, that one of our interns put together, Will Moran, on strategic planning. As all of us can agree, one of the worst things that can happen when you're an organization like the City of Auburn is you have good work that is done by people, and it gets put on a shelf and it doesn't get utilized. So Will has put a document together on some of these studies that have been done over the years, and here's a list of the reports that are included in this document that Will has put together for the Strategic Plan Committee when that convenes. We've been doing a lot of preparation trying to get ready for this process. You can see it covers a wide spectrum of issues. Another document that Will has put together, which is a PowerPoint. Again, it was intended for the Strategic Plan Committee and also the subcommittees when they meet, shows the breadth of the issues that we're going to be trying to address, many of which go back to the comprehensive plan. I am not going to walk you through all of it. I have some highlights that I want to show you later, but on the Riverwalk, for example, Will did research on what other communities are doing to try and develop their riverfronts. He looked at San Antonio. I've had the opportunity to be in San Antonio. We're not San Antonio, of course, but the best way to learn is to see what other people are doing. So he took some examples from other places and also looked at city gateways, and I'll be talking about that. Here's the presentation that I'd like to present tonight. When I was hired as city manager, one of the things that I spoke about with the mayor and the council at the time, and Councilors Titus and Walker and Young will probably remember this, was the idea of having a strategic plan for the city of Auburn. When I was the county manager in Cumberland County, for Cumberland County government, we did 2 strategic plans. And they were really partnerships that we had with Muskie School and also the Greater Portland Council of Governments to help us on the issues that we were dealing with, many of which had to do with the municipalities in the county and the future of the county and the region. Those partnerships were very important to us as a county government, and they were a 6-month process for each one. We had 50 people involved in the first one that we did, and we had 100 or so in the second one. The interns were very helpful from the Muskie School, and as Will Moran has been in helping us get started with this process. That's kind of the backdrop to my interest in the strategic plan, and it's even more important here, I think, in many ways, because of the comprehensive plan that was done by the city. and adopted back in 2010. There were many good ideas in that comprehensive plan. Some of them have been implemented and some of them have not been. Some of them haven't been addressed. The idea of this strategic plan is to help us be able to address some of those comprehensive plan issues, as well as look at some other things that present an opportunity for the city. In the case of the comprehensive plan, it really is a guide, as it states, for decisions that the city must make about growth and development, redevelopment, and changes. And we also have an annual work plan, as you know, which was adopted in 2018 with the previous mayor and council, and I reviewed recently with you for FY19. That annual work plan is really based on the budget that is adopted for this year for FY19. But when you think about it, many of the items that are in that budget go back to the comprehensive plan, which was adopted back in 2010. What I think will help us in the future going forward is the concept of the strategic plan. That strategic plan is for a 3 to 5 year period. You have the comprehensive plan for 10 years, then the strategic plan for 3 to 5 years, and then, of course, your annual work plan. With the strategic plan, it's my responsibility as city manager to implement the comprehensive plan. I think that this is a great opportunity for the city to be able to address some of these items that are in the comprehensive plan that have not been addressed up to this point in time or implemented. Just to review how this structure will work, we'll have a strategic plan steering committee. I've spoken about that before. Here are people that have been working on a steering committee. We've met probably a couple of times, really just to give direction to the staff. The staff are the folks that have been meeting. The people that are represented on the steering committee from staff, myself, Phil, Michael, have been meeting with Emily Ennis, and we also had our interns involved, Will Moran, and also Brittany as well participated. And we've been working through these issues, trying to get prepared and to ramp up for this strategic plan process that we would like to kick off in September. The strategic plan committee would consist of the mayor, Cliff Grime, who would be the chair of the strategic plan committee, Emily Ennis, Councilor Zanya, Councilor Walker, Fatuma Hussein, Mary Sylvester, all the subcommittee chairs, so that there's coordination between the committees, subcommittees, Michael Chamings and myself. And with the subcommittees, you can see them listed there. I'll read them off, and in the event it's difficult for people to read them from home. You have agriculture and natural resources, economic development, education and city collaboration. That does tie into the comprehensive plan in the sense that in the comprehensive plan it talks about a new high school, but it's more than that. It's about trying to improve the collaboration, coordination between the city and the education department. Then you have the downtown and the riverfront. Then you have transportation, community facilities and infrastructure, recreation and tourism, strategic investments, which I consider to be like a finance committee, which will be looking at different investments that the city would need to make, some of which will have a greater return on investment than others. And that committee will be making recommendations, as will all the others that will come back to you with a final report for you to act on. And then there's a technology and innovation subcommittee as well. We want to make sure that as a city government, we have the newest technology that we can make available to try and make it easier for people to be able to work for city government. The strategic plan subcommittees will meet for approximately 6 months. There will be a chair for each subcommittee. That process has started in the sense that there are some people that have agreed to chair subcommittees at this point in time. We still haven't finalized that. There are community members that have been invited, will be invited. We'd like your input on that. We'll be asking for that input. There will be staff assigned to each subcommittee as well. In some cases, the staff will be members of the subcommittee. In other cases, staff might help assist the subcommittee. There will be intern support, which we're working on now. We're hoping that we'll get 1 or 2 people from the Muskie School who, like Will and Brittany, can assist us. Bates College would like to collaborate with us on some of the things we're doing as a city. This might be an opportunity, as well as Central Maine Community College. There will be minutes taking of the meetings, the subcommittee meetings and the strategic plan committee meetings. We'll post the strategic planning information on the city's website, and there will be regular updates to the council. Once again, going back to the comprehensive plan, if you look at some of these issues that are here on the comprehensive plan, you have natural resource policies, water and sewer, public facilities, and so forth. And you look below at the subcommittees, there's a natural connection, I think, between those subcommittees and the issues that are listed in the comprehensive plan. Again, here's a summary of some of the things that Will Moran did some research on that he was looking at that I referred to earlier. The Riverwalk communities that we've looked at, like San Antonio, gateways, transportation authorities. Transportation authority is a new concept here, but it's one that has been discussed. The idea of that is bringing together the different transportation entities that are working on transportation issues, whether they might be bus services or rail or other forms of transportation, so that they can be more maybe highly effective than they are now. A welcome center is a possibility. And then looking at recreation, agricultural, natural resources, and public safety. Here are some of the examples that Will has been able to research. He looked at Providence, Rhode Island. I actually was down there last November, Veterans Day, and they did I think they call them the water fire events. Beautiful. That they have. They have thousands of people that go to those. They have a different situation than we do, in the sense that what they've done there with the river is man-made. It was created. We're going to have to think about how we would do it here, or do something like that. Rock Hill, South Carolina is another example that Will discovered, and also San Antonio, Texas. These are just examples that can be inspiring to us as we think about what we're doing. City gateways, again, looking at what do people see when they come into the city. If they come in on Washington Street, what are they going to see? And there are some specific recommendations in the comprehensive plan, but there's also kind of a theme of trying to have gateways into the city that promote the city, that will attract people. Do we want to have a different sign like the one that they have here with the town hall? I'm not saying that's what we want, but something like that.
For the record, that might be the worst municipal sign in the United States. I'm hoping it's Canadian.
It might be, actually. I don't want to start any wars here, so I'll... Next, we have transportation. You can't read this information, unfortunately, but there's background research on transportation authorities. We have the intermodal facility. We all know that the intermodal facility is not doing a great deal of business right now. Is there more we can be doing to try and develop that? Passenger rail, that's an ongoing discussion and debate, and that's being looked at now. At Ever Welcome Center, again, these are concepts that will be looked at by the Strategic Plan Committee and the subcommittees with your participation. Love to have you be involved on the subcommittees and participate in those discussions. As you can see, there's a lot of information here that these folks are going to be asked to look at. Recreational resources, we have Mount Appetite, which is a great gem for us. We have trails in general. We got the Lake Auburn Trail System, the regional trail networks. I like the idea of trying to develop more of that trail system. What could we do is a good question that will be asked of the strategic plan subcommittee that works on this. And finally, kind of going back to the various studies that have been done, we are going to try and pull from those with the help of the interns and staff to try and present information to the subcommittees so that they can talk about these issues and come back with some thoughts and some recommendations in a report that will be presented to the council. This is a community effort. We're not trying to replace the comprehensive plan. That's not what this is about. This is to help us implement the comprehensive plan and to give us a strategic plan as a city government. And I think it's pretty exciting. Having been involved in a couple of these before, I think it will be very helpful to the city, and we will work hard to make it as transparent as we possibly can. Thank you very much, and I will say this. I'm happy to have the new assistant city manager on board to work with me by my side to help with the implementation of this.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Just add one more thing, too. Talking about the genesis of the strategic plan, if you kind of hark back to my inaugural address, one of the things I talked about, one of the three major topics was looking and evaluating all of our past plans that have been done, the list right there, for example, and inventorying what has been completed, what hasn't been completed, what percentage of completion is done, why, did it work, so on and so forth, doing a complete after-action review. And through the talk of that after-action review and this plan and how it morphed into this strategic plan, I won't say morphed in, but it fits nicely within that pre-existing format. Because that's something that I think personally, we never look back on enough, our successes and failures, and learn. So, and then report back. So that's just talking about a little bit about that genesis. This does solve one of kind of my stated goals back in December. So with that, I'd like to open it up for any comments or conversation from the council. Councilor Fournier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm particularly interested in the river walks. I've been to two of those three that you showed, and they're wonderful. You know, they really are very inviting for the public, and the public is not necessarily just the ones who live around there. I mean, it's a draw for a lot of people. And I envision that, you know, our river is beautiful. We can do the same kind of things here, you know, if we can just dream it big, and we can do it. But it's good to know that this was a very good presentation that kind of helps me understand, you know, that we are adhering to the, you know, comprehensive plan, and this is just an extension of that. And as the mayor said, it would be nice to say we can check off some of these things that have already been accomplished and then focus on those that really need to be. It's exciting to know that we're in the creation stage of a next generation, so to speak. Thank you.
Councilor Zania.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm apprehensive. Perhaps when I become engaged in the committee, I'll be able to see it, and I think it being aspirational is wonderful. But I wonder, we talked about looking at all of the previous work that's been done. I think we also need to make sure that we're looking at the current work that's being done. We talked up there about agriculture and recreation. Right now, there's a lot of work being done on the ag zone work, and to not sort of make sure that we're paying attention to what's happening there. I actually lived in Providence when the sort of transformation happened, and they pulled together highway funds, federal funds. I mean, it was a lot. And there was also a lot of money within the city to be able to, and I know that's a shining example. In terms of the Riverwalk, can we accomplish this without really working collaboratively with Lewiston? I mean, to be creating something on one side and have it not mirrored on the other, or?
No, we can't.
I say yes.
I think we need to,
It's our side.
I think we need to, on some of these things, I think we need to invite Lewiston into the process, and not just Lewiston, but Androscoggin County and other groups like AVCOG and so forth. And we've talked about that in the staff meetings that we've had. So I think we need to work together. And I understand the mayor's point, but I think that something like trying to develop the river makes sense to work with the city of Lewiston, in my opinion.
Right. And I do look forward to actively participating in this when we get going. And the final thing I'll say is the whole idea of partnerships, interns, and that. Mm-hmm. That's going to have to be really robust, and hopefully someplace like the Muskie School, you know, we really need that sort of brain power to be able to help us to do that.
I hope so. The last strategic plan we did in Cumberland County government, we had 6 interns from the Muskie School. I've communicated with Dr. Firuza Pavri, who's the director of the Muskie School. I'm on the board of trustees or visitors for the Muskie School, and I'm the co-chair of the advisory committee for the master's program public policy and management, so I know the caliber of students that they have. I'm hoping that we will attract some interest. We have one person we're interviewing this week by phone. Bates College is another great resource, I think, and Central Maine Community College can be as well.
Mm-hmm. And just timing-wise, when do you see, you've brought together, I think it was the executive committee, I can't remember, you said they've met a couple times.
Steering committee group, staff,
committee.
Yeah.
So the next committee, when do you see us getting together?
I see the strategic plan committee convening in September.
Okay.
Kicking it off in September. We'll probably wait for the mayor to get back from China before we do that.
Shishi.
Shay. Shay.
I already messed that up.
Okay.
Shay, great. Thank you.
I do look forward to really digging into this and thinking more about it, but as I said, you know, to really make sure that we have kind of the resources, the people, the brain power to really braid a bunch of different things together.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to make a comment about that too, and I think it's very important. I believe it or not, I'm extremely hesitant on this idea too, and I've vocalized this with the city manager on countless occasions, which was healthy because it's a back and forth, you iron it out, get some clarity. I'm still apprehensive about it. Maybe apprehensive for a couple different reasons. I'm apprehensive because I don't want this to be a, you know, one side, a derelict, kind of kicking the can down the road with regards to our duties. You know, we have an obligation that we can't just sit around waiting for someone else to do the work for us on certain issues that are key. To your point, Councilor Rosania, Ag Zone, we're talking about it already, we're getting into it. That needs to continue as well as other initiatives. We can't just wait and hold for this planning process to finish. It's got to be very dynamic, I think, in all things. So, again, I'm hesitant, I'm concerned, maybe for a couple different reasons than the rest of the council, but I do think it's something that we need to be cognizant of. So, anybody else? Any other councilor? Yeah. Is there any other councilor? Councilor Titus?
Yes, thank you. As you know, Peter, I have several concerns about this, and I really think we got to be careful how we organize this and what our goals are. I want to say that the comprehensive plan, since I've been watching it, has been more of a convenience document rather than a guide. Mm-hmm. If it fits what we want to do, we refer to it. When it doesn't fit what we want to do, we don't refer to it. So the comprehensive plan, and in 2 years, we're going to have to be doing another update. I guess it's every 10 years we update the comprehensive plan, so a lot of that might be changed. So it really hasn't been a living document. It's been just something that's been used, maybe incorrectly. But the other concern I have is, I look at Portland, for instance, has subcommittees that are counselors that actually make recommendations to council. They have a whole different form of government. We tried that once, and it got just unuseful only because either too much or not enough information was going to council, and the committees were accused, and maybe in sometimes, justified or not, that they were actually writing policy in the subcommittees, and this is council committees. So I'm a little concerned about all these committees and what could happen. So much information is going to come so fast that council can't possibly agree to or even hear it in any kind of quick fashion, that there's going to be stuff happening that council has no control over, because there'll be recommendations from committees that might get instituted and council's not even going to know about it until after the fact. I'm a little, very, very nervous about how this is working. If we were going to do it, I'd want to see it start smaller. I would like to see that if this is, what type of committee is it going to be? Is it an ad hoc committee, or is it going to be council set it up and everybody has a chance to be on that committee and we have a nomination process like, you know, so many of the committees that we have now? I'd want to see that official and start with one of those groups down here and see how it fits and how it works before we decide to go out all at once. That really makes me nervous to go out that fast. And again, council should have control over what's going on, and I feel that's a chance that we'll lose that control with the committees. How the committees will be formulated hasn't been really discussed. Is it going to be an ad hoc committee, or is it going to be something that we'll have to get to vote for every member on every one of these committees? And just think of the amount of work. 6 months later, if these guys have done their work, we can't, I mean, we have an open agenda tonight. We have no new or old business, and yet we've had recreational committees get together. We've had ag zone committees get together. We've had all kinds of stuff, and there's no, tonight we don't have anything for new or old business. So how do we think all these committees are going to come up with stuff and council can react on them fast enough? So I'm really concerned about the whole process. And the transparency gets lost in the shuffle, not intentionally, but in the shuffle. Just my thought.
No, you know, it's a thought that I share with you. I am very, very discouraged at the output, not to be confused with the hard work of our existing committees, because one can never, you know, convolute hard work or confuse hard work with results. We should be seeing more from other committees, and there's still committees out here that we haven't heard from in 8 months. There are some people that we've talked with about this concept, I will say, about being part of this process, and they adamantly refused to be part of the process if they had to be approved by the council, which was interesting, and that was something that caught me a little off guard. They wanted speed. They wanted council involvement. They didn't want council approval in the beginning phases, only at the end result and throughout the process. Fortunately, our charter says that we can't have more than 2 councilors in a room together. So that kind of automatically bookmarks. So there's some constraints, and I'm not saying this to counter what you're saying, Councilor Titus, but just to add, some of those conversations I've had, and there are some problems with this, and there are some things that we have to think about. I'll let City Manager address kind of the format and his thoughts on building these committees and what he thinks, but I just wanted to share what some folks said. Councilor Hayes?
I guess at the last meeting, I made some remarks, and I kind of have stayed with my thoughts from earlier. I think you probably heard at the last meeting, but I did sit with the manager, and we talked for probably a good half hour with respect to this issue. I do have some concern, and I think what's already been said, I share. I see right now the structure, I see it being fragmentized. So many of these committees do overlap, so I think there's going to be a lot of redundancy with respect to even staff time. Reporting to one subcommittee, they're going to still have to be participating in the others. In our discussions, I shared Councilor Titus's concerns with transparency. I think that was an issue before with the council subcommittees as to when they were going to be, you know, was it just going to be minutes? Were they going to be recorded? Could they be televised? You know, I threw out the idea, if we're going to have this many subcommittees, that at least the subcommittees should be grouped together, so there'd be either an afternoon or an evening where most of the subcommittees would get together, so each one would meet for maybe an hour, and the other subcommittee would meet. So again, it better utilizes staff time. Also allows, to me, I don't think we, as counselors, it would be ill use of our time being allotted just to one subcommittee. It would be difficult to be even on several. But if there was an allotment of time where the subcommittees were going to meet one after the other, then the public as well as counselors could be there, or to hopefully be televised so the public could see what's going on. I think transparency is a real issue. And council participation, I think we need to know and hear right up front, not that we need to be part of the discussion, but certainly listening. And I guess I have the same question. We keep talking about who's going to be on the committees, and I guess we are going to be part of maybe being able to recommend people or see the list of people that are being contacted, how they're going to be contacted. I'm sharing a lot of concerns that have already been said. I think, to me, it's too fragmented. I think that some of these subcommittees could be grouped together so that so you don't have this subcommittee working on one thing and addressing a certain issue one way, and you have another subcommittee really tackling the same issue, but maybe from a little different perspective, where you really need to bring those groups together so that you see different sides of the issue and commingle it right up front. Otherwise, I think the overall committee is going to have a big job to do afterwards.
Let me just, before we have any, let me just try to break this down just in a couple other chunks here, just so we can kind of get consensus and whittle this a little bit closer. Is everybody kind of in favor of the concept of coming up with a revised strategic plan that really audits, again, concept that audits, or at least something that audits what we've done in the past, our current existing plan, success rates, and then working and helping with that work plan? And I'm not talking about the formation of what the subcommittees are called, just the concept. Because if we don't have agreement on the concept, there's no point in having any future discussion, of course.
Strategic plan is a good idea.
Okay, so it is, and it should be, I think. You know, any good plan, as long as it's executed effectively, is an effective plan.
I agree.
So
It
do we
gives
have
us-
consensus on the concept at least?
Yeah, gives us direction.
Let me, just to be clear, Mr. Mayor, when you say the concept, you mean the concept of looking at a strategic plan, or the concept of a strategic plan as defined by this?
No, just a strategic plan, the concept of a strategic planning process to looking, evaluate, and to apply, obviously, you know, to help with planning and to go forward. As it sits on one of your initial slides, there was obviously the comprehensive plan, strategic plan, then one-year work plans. If we're in agreement with that concept, I think that's a great starting point. If not, everything else is moot.
Yeah,
So-
I agree with that, because one of the process I thought was, and you bring it up, we have committees already. And any of these committees, any of them that we have out there, the 50-some-odd or whatever committees we have, are any of those got
33?
able to
Can
fit
they
into any of
dovetail?
these that already could be working on something, but we have not seen a report? I know some of them are required to report once a year or every 6 months to council on their activities, and yet, since I've been in council, I've never seen a committee come before council and report their activities and what their progress has been.
Right.
Any of those committees can do any of this, I don't know. And so how are we going to manage 8 more if we haven't any control on the current committees we already have?
Councilor Fournier?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councilor Titus makes an excellent point, because looking at all of those subcommittees, there are already in existence just about all of those subcommittees. And if you're already working, let's say, on an education subcommittee, like I represent, for example, the school committee, you know, can that not be the same thing that as part of that, or whoever else is on the resources, agriculture, that kind of thing? I think the concept is an excellent idea. I think starting in chunks, in cycles and phases, the first one being doing an accounting of what's transpired since 2010, because it's, as we know, we'll be ready for 2020 to redo what we need to do. Starting that way, taking a look at what have we accomplished and how long has it taken to get to that point will kind of give us an idea where to go next. So I think starting at the beginning in chunks with an idea of going forward as the needs evolve. Because I think it might be a moving target for a while as you take a look at what's been accomplished and what hasn't been, and what needs, or what to take out. I think the concept is excellent.
So if I could be a little bold on this one, take what everybody says. Well, Councilor Gary, I'm sorry, you have something to add?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too believe the concept of a strategic plan is good. But no matter what we come up with, no matter what the committees come up with, the history of this council is once it comes in front of us, we pull the heck out of it. We reshape it, we retool it, we repackage it, we put it out.
Mhm.
So that's a lot of wasted work that the committees have done once we get done with it. I mean, look at the budget. The budget comes to us. This time we really didn't do justice, I feel, but in previous years we really pulled it apart and did a better job at it. We can't just look at going back what the comp plan did 10 years ago. We got to go back to like one of those things I think I read, my vision's not so good, the ADAPT plan. The ADAPT plan was one form of plan for downtown development, and we're systematically flipping it upside down and turning it on its ear. I don't think the ADAPT plan totally coincides and works well with the form-based code, especially with the previous mayors who put the ADAPT plan into existence. The vision back then was to open up the riverfront, to have view of the river and the different events on the river. This council's view right now is if we get a vacant spot that we can market and develop it, we're going to do it to bring in tax dollars. So I think we've got to look at what we've done in the past, or another one is that passenger intermodal facility at the airport. That was something back in the ADAPT type era, way back when I came on the council back in 2000, 2002. We got to figure out if that's something we're going to do, move on it, and put something more in place and have it become part of the strategic plan. If we're not going to do it, anything about it, then let's take it off the books. But if we're going to improve the airport, if we're going to, I mean, we've got the public, we've got a private business with the bus system, and we're trying to work with the local bus system. So if we're trying to pull everything together, and also we're looking at the train, we got to get more into place because we're going to be passed by if we, I mean, we're snoozing right now.
Got it. So if I could, for the council only, I listened to what everybody said, and this is what I would like to kind of propose, so we instruct the manager to do. Yes, we're for the concept. We would like it, though, to be represented to us in a simpler, consolidated format, which could mean consolidation of the different subcommittees, lessening of the subcommittees, or a hybrid of the two. Present a org chart, what kind of or type of functionality, not functionality, wrong choice of word, what type of committee is going to be a mayor's ad hoc committee, the mayor appoints? Should there be a hybrid of city manager appointment and our appointment committee taking applications and then making recommendations? There's a couple different ways, but at least an idea from the city manager and the steering committee on that, and maybe to meet and get the executive committee to come together to kind of talk through that prior to the next presentation of this, and then making sure it includes a thorough review and any conflicts that might exist between existing plans, comprehensive plans, and actions that he's doing. And that leads back into the overall review of the plans, what we've accomplished, what we haven't. Does that make sense? Does that kind of hit on most everybody's points again, some consensus and direction?
I would just like to say that we've done a lot of planning. We've had a lot of plans written. We've read the plans, they're put on the shelf. I'd like to get to the implication of these plans. You know, put them into work. And now we look around and we think about this plan. Well, are we giving away some of our authority in our decision process? And that's what we're elected to make decisions and pass ordinances and things of this sort. So I think that's a sign of the objection that I'm hearing from some of us. So And if you're going to sell a plan, you got to hear that hidden objection. You know, what don't we like about this? What are we objecting to? And I don't know if that's been voiced.
Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, but I'll say this. We have to approve, and I mean, just as what we just talked about a minute ago, we have to approve everything that comes to the council. Any idea, and I looked at it as a way of percolating different concepts and ideas and then proving them out before they got to the council for further due diligence, a multi-step process. Let's say they come up with an idea of a new indoor ice arena, okay? Again, I'm just joking here, but still, for example, you know, how much would it cost, how would it be paid for, what is utilization, is there a market study, so forth. All that would then get presented to the council for final approval versus subjugating our power and authority as elected officials to the committee to make policy. To Councilor Titus's analogy with Portland, I remember when that was happening. And
they're still doing it now. I mean, that's their model of government. Yeah. And what concerns me is, and I saw this happen to some degree when we had the council committees, is things were happening behind the scenes. Staff were doing things that was not, council was not involved in it. The subcommittee made recommendations, oh yeah, we can do that, and it got done, not necessarily with council's blessing. So there's some things that don't necessarily need council blessing, but the committees might steer that. But I wanted to bring up one other point. Interesting point, Councilor Young. We spent a lot of money for a ag study. The committee met for several weeks or months. They come up with 3 items that were of major importance, and we've yet to see the council the chance to discuss those 3. The idea of a commission, the idea of changing some zoning to the 50% rule or the 10-acre rule. I would feel very good about this policy, or this procedure working committee by committee if we were seeing some results with current past committees. So we could bring it, and even if we voted it down, at least that's progress. It came to us, we decided we didn't want it, we voted it down. It comes to us, and it starts something that if that was working, I might consider taking step A and go to the next one, the next box, and have a committee get together, talk about that, bring their recommendations to us, and then we have a chance to vote on their recommendations. But I haven't seen that.
There was an idea that was brought last meeting in a workshop about ag. There was ideas about addressing this.
Right, but there was never a proposal brought before council from the ag study, and now with the good work of a very large committee that got together to study the ag zone study, and now council still hasn't got anything to talk about, except at a workshop from the committee. Well, it's there, we just haven't, it hasn't been brought to us yet.
But that's
so I'm concerned about the process in the past. How can we expect it's going to get any better going forward with this committee?
Yeah, the ag zone issue is an example of something that has been done, that we have paid monies for, that has been formulated, and that, to me, you know, in order to spend the money wisely that we've already spent, that should be part of the plan that we're looking at here, the strategic plan. And what I was referring to,
that's going to put it in the committee for another 6 months or a year.
I think that, to my point, I think we need to really move on that. We have some momentum there, and we either move or not move on it, but we need to do some sort of action.
But my thing is, I still say, I would like to see where we stand here with the table of contents. You know, would it take long to figure out, just to begin as a touch-off point, where are we? Where are we with all of this? You know, in progress, complete, undone, something like that.
Mr. Manager, I know the process started earlier this spring with city staff. Can you update us on that, or is that still a work in progress?
Well, it is a work in progress, but a couple of things that I want to comment on. One is, it's my understanding that the last report that was put out by the city manager's office on the comprehensive plan was in 2013 on the progress of the plan. What I'm trying to do is with the help of the staff and the team that we have with the city, is to be more successful in the implementation of the plan. I've seen this process work. I'm not a policymaker. That's not my job. My job is to implement policy. I'm trying to find a way to be able to give a vehicle to the city council, to be able to address issues that haven't been addressed up to this point by the conference plan or haven't been completed, as well as other ideas. I understand the concern about overlap. I saw that in Cumberland County. We worked it out, and it was amazing to see the process work. The first plan we did, 80% of the recommendations were implemented. The report had to be approved, accepted by the county commissioners in that case. And the second plan, which was more ambitious, 70% of the recommendations were implemented. There were 9 subcommittees with that second committee. So we can certainly look at trying to revise what we've been looking at doing based on the comments tonight. I work for you. What I'm trying to do is to have the city be successful.
I think we all agree with that. Councilor, we get just a couple of minutes more, then I want to wrap that up. But.
I see a difference, though, between municipal and county. County, you're working with municipal government leaders as well as, you know, institutions, businesses, and so forth at large. We have a real responsibility at this level to be very transparent, make sure that we're involved as a council, make sure that the public, as we go through this process, is well informed. And that's what scares me right now with the fragmentation, as well as staff time. I still say, and I think Councilor Titus said it before, it involved a lot of staff time, and there was a lot of overlap even then. And I think we heard it from the planning department. You know, they're working hard, but when they have to be participating in, you know, providing information, responding here, responding there, is that time well spent? You know, staff needs to be ready to really respond to the public and provide services or information that's needed to move things forward. So I understand the really need for planning, and I agree that this does go back to the comprehensive plan, and I think we do need to have a real assessment as to where we are. Maybe this is the beginning of the revision to the update to the comprehensive plan. Maybe we could approach it that way.
You also got to remember the charter needs to be updated by charter too
Oh,
over
yes.
the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Well, let's, in the spirit of time, and I think we've talked about that, I think this has been a good discussion. Respectfully, Mr. Manager, we'd like to ask you to come back next meeting with a kind of a revised plan, addressing what you've heard tonight. And we've kept notes, and obviously we got some minutes. I think we can talk about this, and if need be, maybe we get a meeting together with some folks that have been part of the process, staff, as well as Councilor Lasagna and Councilor Walker, and discuss this out and see if we can come up with something that is more palatable to the majority of the council.
We could certainly do that, and I'll work on that. And just a reminder, I worked for the city of Lewiston for about 10 years, so I appreciate you know, the importance of staying connected with the citizens and the community.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, I'm going to call this workshop to close. We'll reconvene in approximately 4.5 minutes.
4.5.
4.5. You better hurry.
Denise Atkins and Waylon Jennings and Donnie Cash, they all actually.
Elbows getting soft.
City manager stole my joke.
Nelson, who's got a lot of #1 songs, but.
Right, yeah. Okay.
Oh, no, you're doing fine. You
surprised
sit right
when
there
you
in that
see
chair.
who
Not
you
my
were
chair.
written for.
We're on the air now. Now call to order this meeting of August 20th, 2018. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have 2 consent items on the agenda tonight. I'll entertain a motion. You all ready?
I make a motion to, for order 640-820-2018 to confirm the city manager's appointment of Philip Crowell Jr. as Assistant City Manager.
Second.
I have a motion for Councilor Lasagna and a second from Councilor Walker. By show of, we should do both consent items together.
No, they aren't consent items. We have to vote
All
on
of
them
them.
individually.
We gotta, say again?
They're not consent items. We have to vote on each one individually.
Oh, true. They're consent items.
They are, they're not starred. I'm sorry.
That's right. Well, we're gonna vote on them separately now, aren't we? Okay. By show of hands, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? None being. Order carries 7-0. I have one more item.
No.
Good job. Tell you, I had to work hard on that 7-0 unanimous vote. That kept me up late. Let's go on number 2, please.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve Resolve 10-08202018, adopting the Androscoggin County Hazard Mitigation Plan 2017 update, as long as you read every page.
Second.
I have a motion for Councilor Titus, a second from Councilor Walker. By show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed? By a vote of 6-1, the resolve carries. Minutes. We have the minutes from the August 6, 2018 meeting. Are there any corrections to the minutes? None being. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the August 6, 2018 regular city council meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion for Councilor Walker and a second from Councilor Fournier. By a show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries 7-0. Next, we're moving on to communications, presentations, and recognitions. Can someone pull it up faster than me? I'm having some computer issues. Hold on, bear with me 1 second, folks. Thank you. Tonight's proclamation is, I'm going to be reading, is September to be Maine Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. I'm going to read this proclamation. Dear valued supporter of Team Haley Hugs, Team Haley Hugs, a nonprofit organization, was established in 2016. Whoop, excuse me 1 second. With a mission to bring awareness to childhood cancer. Haley Stewart, along with her mom, Tabitha, created Team Haley Hugs for a way to raise money to help families affected by childhood cancer. Many of these families cannot hold regular jobs due to many hospital stays and visits. The gas, housing, and meals are financial burdens. Sometimes these families need a little help to pay some past due bills, buy food, or even help with child's Christmas or birthday. With that said, Team Haley Hugs has helped many families financially and emotionally, and will continue to do so with donations and sponsorships to the community. To all the friends of Team Haley Hugs, can make Haley's dream come true. Haley passed away during September of 2017, leaving a vacant space in all of our hearts. She touched so many people and families throughout Maine, and extending onto other states. And the wish Haley fought for everyone to Go Gold Maine Do It for childhood cancer awareness. So we, along with Haley, want to adopt September as Go Gold Maine Do It for Childhood Cancer Month, September 2nd, 2018. They held their first annual Go Gold Maine Do It kickoff event, and it was a success. Brought in over 12,000 for vendors, live auctions, and Go Gold accessories. 50-50 in donations aplenty. A parade was held along with an all-day entertainment and activities. These memories will always be dear to our heart, as Haley was there to celebrate with us and stayed for the fireworks show. What better way to go to honor Haley's legacy by encouraging our towns, schools, and businesses in Maine to go gold and do it for the month of September. The town municipalities can sign a proclamation declaring September as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and everyone can decorate in gold for the month to participate. So let's make Haley proud for us and carry out her dream. We are going to do a proclamation, which I don't have yet. The actual proclamation? September? Working on that, I think, for September? Yes. So, you have one? Well, let's see that. Where is that?
I have it in front of me. I have the proclamation.
Oh,
right here.
excuse me. Well, let me now. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't think we were going to have it in September. Let me actually read the proclamation. The state of Maine is going gold for the month of September from this year forth in support of childhood cancer awareness. Whereas cancer is a leading cause of death by disease among U.S. children and is detected in more than 15,000 of our country's sons and daughters every year. And whereas in the state of Maine, cancer affects more than 50 new children and families annually, where more than 400 children are undergoing treatment. Currently, and where we are ranked in the top range of incidence of all cancers at 468.3 per 100,000 people. And whereas September is nationally recognized as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Whereas thanks to ongoing advances in research and treatment, the 5-year survival rate for all childhood cancers has climbed from less than 50% to 80% over the last several decades. And whereas innovative studies are leading to real breakthroughs, reminding us of the importance of supporting scientific discoveries and moving closer to finding cures through much work remains to be done. And whereas 1 in 5 children diagnosed will not survive. During National Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, we remember the many children who have been taken from us too soon, and we extend our support to all those who continue to battle this illness with incredible strength and courage. Now, therefore, as mayor of the city of Auburn, I, Jason Levesque, proclaim the city of Auburn will help Maine go gold in support of Team Haley Hugs and of all the children and families affected by childhood cancer. In doing so, from this day forward, we'll recognize September as Maine Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. This is our way of paying tribute to the families, friends, and professionals and communities who lend their strength to children fighting pediatric cancer. Thank you. Next, open session. I'm going to open up the first open session of the night. Are there any members of the public are invited? All members of the public are invited to speak to the council about any issue directly related to city business, which is not on tonight's agenda. I'd ask you to state your name and address, and please limit your comments to approximately 3 minutes.
Adam Lee, Garden Circle. First, I'd like to congratulate you on your consent agenda. I think you've hired an incredibly good assistant city manager. It wasn't so much about the hazard mitigation plan, but good job on that as well. I wanted to talk to you again about the strategic planning committee tonight. First, to remind you that the council has still not taken any action or provided any direction with regards to the existence of a committee or the appointment structure of a committee. You act only through oral motion, and that's what your ordinances say. You act only through oral motion as to a resolution, a policy, or an ordinance. And until you do that, you've provided absolutely no direction to staff. The second thing I'd like to say is, there was suggested that there could be a hybrid version of an appointment process for a committee like this, and there is nothing in your charter that would permit you to have some sort of hybrid structure for appointment of a committee. You either have a mayoral committee, which requires a mayoral action, or you have a council committee, which requires a very clear process that goes through an appointment process and goes to a nominating committee and then comes to you as a council. Those are the two options for the existence of a committee through the structure of your government. Along the lines with that, I'm concerned, since we know that there's not been that mayoral action and there's been no council action, that there have been individuals who have been approached to be on the committee or to be chairs of subcommittees. That seems inappropriate given that there exists no committee or 9 committees. Finally, there was suggestion this evening that this decision is necessary, that the 9 subcommittees are going to be necessary in order to implement the comprehensive plan. And the basis for that, I understand, is that you need this group, this outside group of 9 different committees that would probably be appointed by the mayor to suggest implementation strategies for the comprehensive plan. I'd like you to visit pages 122 to 135 of the comprehensive plan that suggests the existence of a great number of committees and actors within the community that are to implement each and every single policy recommendation of the comprehensive plan. That work has been done. I don't think you need 9 new committees in order to do that work for you, especially for anyone who's served on the nominating committees. You understand that we have a very difficult time finding people to staff those committees. I was looking at it tonight. You're looking for members of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. You're looking for members of CDBG and the Citizens Advisory Committee for that, as well as for the Board of Assessment Review. Each of those committees is presently tasked with implementation of policy aspects of the comprehensive plan. I ask you, if you create 9 new committees to do that work, why would you have any individual who's on those committees presently or is prospectively going to be on those committees wanting to join them? I'd submit you wouldn't, because their work would be wasted. It would be done by 9 mayorally appointed committees. So with that, I hope you have a good night.
Good, thank you very much. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak? No.
Good evening. My name is Brian Carrier. I live at 32 Constellation Drive in Auburn. Just a quick request. During the meeting that we had, the residents of Hotel Road, in regards to the upgrade to Hotel Road and between Lewiston Junction Road and Kitty Hawk, a large number of the individuals that were present that night seemed to want it to have a police department presence on the committee. And I would just like to put that out to the council right now, that if we could have somebody from the police department, because a lot of the concern raised by the residents that are out in that area have to do with the police department and the enforcement of the speed limit from Kitty Hawk to Lewiston Junction Road and actually further down, and the high number of fatalities that we've had over the years in that area. And just wanted to make a personal request from the public in regards to that.
Thank you. So, Mr. Manager, can we ask the interim chief if that's possible? Yes. Interim Chief Moat, do you think we could voluntold a member of your department to help out with that? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carey, for bringing that up. And voluntold is an actual verb. Volunteer, voluntold. Anybody else from the public like to speak?
Heidi McCarthy, Garden Circle. I expressed last week my concerns with the strategic plan, and I was hopeful I would hear something tonight that would make me less concerned. Unfortunately, I didn't. I've heard several times, we've been meeting, we've been ramping up, but it's clear to me that the we does not include the city council, the people who are supposed to direct policy for our city. Throughout the city manager's presentation, he brought up several possible projects for the city, and after each said, this is in the comp plan. And if it's there, what is stopping the council from making it a priority and directing the city manager and staff to come up with a process for it? Councilors have expressed that the comp plan is not an active document. But I wonder if it's up to the council to get it active by identifying those items they feel would move our city forward and looking at what's lacking to start making recommendations for the next one. I looked through the presentation posted in the agenda, which was briefly referenced tonight, and I became curious about the information presented about cities who have enacted strategic plans. So I did a little research. Providence doesn't run by a council manager form of government, and they chose a process that reflects that. Rock Hill, South Carolina, on the other hand, has, as does Auburn, a council manager form of government. And with their strategic plan, the council and city staff worked together to create the plan, assisted not by additional committees, but by a citizen survey. The City Council has been presented with the idea of the strategic plan as the only way to move the city forward. I will again express my concern that the City Council has not explored whether this is truly the best and most citizen-inclusive process for our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Joe Gray, Soapers Mill Road. I'm really confused because at the August 6th meeting, the mayor said that the committee was an idea that's being kicked around, but the city manager said that they've already had, and I quote, lots of meetings. They had an expert, Derek Belanger, talk about facilities, and Katie Grondin was going to come in and talk about schools next. He also said that a lot of these committees are going to be populated by staff, which is not the people in the city who make policy. The mayor made it quite evident last meeting that he did not want an ag commission or ag committee or ag board, whatever you want to call it. But now he wants one as part of a strategic plan committee, so he doesn't want one that a bunch of farmers wanted or ag zone residents wanted to be populated by ag zone residents. He wants one populated by whomever he chooses, which is not going to give you the same result.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, Mr. Gray, and it just sometimes, and I'm not going to take your bait on this one, but you know, when people quote me or misquote me, I do take offense because it can lead to a mountain of rumors. So if we could just please not quote me, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Continue.
There's videos. One of the problems with the committee that we have now is that when the committees meet, staff has already made a decision, and that became very evident tonight. Because the CDBG money, in the meeting we had late April, early May, they already said that Chestnut Street was going to be closed and we were going to give $125,000 to it. They came to the meeting with that there, in the budget. So what good is it to have a committee if the decision's already made? And that's why a lot of people, that's why I feel a lot of people don't want to be on these committees, because you don't take them seriously. Tonight, we heard about the city manager possibly appointing committee members, but the city manager doesn't have that authority to appoint committee members. The people in this city who make policy are you seven of you, not a group of people handpicked by the powers that be to dictate to the rest of us how to run the city. You are elected by us to run the city in the way we need it run. Use the power you were given.
With that, we're going to close the first public session. Moving on to unfinished business, which there is none, and moving on to new business, which there is none as well. So we're going to move on to reports. Mayor's report is first. I'm going to ask you all to bear with me. It is quite a substantial one. I've been saving up my reports over the last 8 months for this one meeting. First, I'm going to pass out just some handouts if I could. Something I just got hot off the presses, and I'll explain that in just a second. 3, actually. Clear? Okay. I just handed out to the council too, and I'll make this public as well. We just literally got it, but basically, I wanted to give you an update on the actions of the Legislative Policy Committee, in which we have two voting members, which I think is unique in the entire state of Maine, and that's City Manager and myself. Through this process, we look at the legislative activities and see how they're going to affect the city through surveys, through policy directions of the committee that meets, and when they meet. They're pretty effective in having their voice heard, and hence the municipality's voices heard in Augusta. This is a result of our most recent survey taken of voting members of the LPC throughout the state. And you'll see as a description of the questions they were asking and how the results were on a ranking or priority ranking for each. So this is what's going to be utilized over the next 2 sessions in Augusta with the legislature and the governor, the future governor, trying to priorities for municipalities. If you look on page 2, on the inside, you'll see that the number one, just for the public's record, the number one priority is restoration of revenue sharing funding. Second is state funding for K-12 education. So you can see the backup and the priorities here in this. So that's for your review. On that same note, though, I need an alternate, excuse me, if I can't make a meeting or conduct a survey. Historically, the city manager was that individual, but he is obviously a voting member now. So I'm asking someone, I think it's a great opportunity for someone on the city council, if they want to be active in this and involved. That might mean attending a meeting if I cannot attend a meeting in Augusta, or filling out a survey, and sometimes these things take, you have 5 minutes to make to fill out a survey because it's that time pressing in Augusta. If you want to, just let me know, okay? And we'll talk about it, and we'll see if anybody has any interest. Next, I'd like to congratulate the manager on, I'm not sure if he even knows about this, I just got a letter today in the mail from the Maine Town, City, and County Management Association. Dear Mr. Levesque, on behalf of the Maine Town, City, and the County Management Association, it's my pleasure to inform you that Peter Creighton has applied for and has been accepted as having met the professional development criteria for the MTCMA certification program. Peter is now one of the select few recertified town, city, or county managers in the state of Maine. The program represents Peter's commitment to public service and professional excellence. The City of Auburn can be proud to have its manager certified. So congratulations is in order to our city manager. Next on the list, Make-A-Wish. Make-A-Wish Foundation and the Auburn Rec Department had a wonderful block party last weekend over at Max Grill off Minot Avenue. I don't know what the final tally was. I think we're going to know very soon in the next city council meeting, but I did hear today it was a rousing success. I myself spent 30 minutes in the dunk tank. City Councilor Titus spent an obscene amount of money
Trying to get you wet.
and never even came close.
Oh, well.
But it went to a good cause, so thank you for being a vet. I got dunked about 75 times, mostly by very young children under the age of 10.
But there was a
and my
distance.
wife.
I was way out.
You did. You were on the Little League mound. So, Make-A-Wish, great activity. Next year it will be downtown Auburn on Main Street, and it's just growing every year. There was thousands of people there. It was phenomenal. So I'm looking forward to next year downtown. I've met with just a couple of things. I met with a lot of developers over the last several weeks, actually. Commercial real estate brokers, people that develop property, restaurateur from a regional chain, which will remain nameless. Just talking about Auburn, inviting them here. For a lot of them, it was their first time in Auburn, and it was really refreshing to hear their take and what they said. And I wanted to share a couple things with you. First of all, they absolutely loved our downtown. They said Southern Maine communities would die for a downtown like ours. So that should make us feel good. Our Main Street area is beautiful, has a lot of potential. City Councilor Hayes, quite some months ago, mentioned possibility of development in our surface parking lot. There was some interest there as well. They said that's a good location. After 186 Main Street was developed, they said that would be a natural progression and an evolution. I thought that was interesting. One developer told me, though, when we talked about density, he asked me, and I'm going to ask you all this, New Hampshire, it's a nice state. We've all been in New Hampshire. I like it. There's farms, there's towns, there's cities. It's a beautiful area. If we had the same population density as New Hampshire, Maine would have 4.4 million people instead of our current 1.3 million. So we're a very undense state. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to grow without sacrificing any of our natural resources, and encouraging better growth, better utilization of our footprint. So there's some interesting points here. I'll bring more of those up and some memorandums out to the public later on. Going down the list, the Night House, open house this weekend during the Balloon Festival, hosted by the Androscoggin Historical Society. I went there with my family. It was extremely well done. There was a very good turnout. It's a huge asset. I can honestly say I've never been in it, and it was phenomenal. So I encourage everybody to try to make some time next time it's open to get there. And hats off to the Androscoggin Historical Society for their recent takeover, as Councilor Young mentioned, of the West Auburn Schoolhouse, and soon to be opening of that. I'm not sure when. You probably have some notes on that. China, I'll be gone, as some of you might have read, and I told you before, September 12th, myself and Director Chamings will be gone to China September 12th to the 24th. It's a jam-packed itinerary. If council or public has any questions about it, please reach out to us. Okay, I'd love to share it. We're doing research now and making sure we're prepared for our trip. including practicing some Mandarin Chinese, thanks to Councilor Lasagna, who keeps correcting me, keep doing that. So, another bit of good news, men's draft league, softball, Pettingill Park. First of all, the Pettingill softball facility is first rate. 2 years ago, last year, they launched a one-of-a-kind in the state draft league for softball. It's completely online. Stats, draft, you name it, is run just like a Major League Baseball organization. National League, American League. Went from 8 teams year 1 to 14 teams on year 2. I threw out the first pitch. There were people there. It was packed. There were people there from all over southern and central Maine. As far away as Kittery, I believe, was the farthest one that someone can't traveled. And they're traveling here to practice, and they're traveling here for games. So hats off to Recreation. Y'all did a phenomenal job organizing that. That is a premier organization, or excuse me, a premier event, so you should be proud of that. 150th fundraiser. As you might remember, we have 3 foundation spots for foundation sponsors. That's the $10,000 level. I am very, very happy and relieved to report that 2 of those foundation spots have been grabbed up. That's $20,000. And in the next 24 hours, I will know from the 3rd and final. So before Labor Day, we'll hit our goal of $30,000 raised for the Sesquicentennial out of an ultimate goal of $75,000. So we're well on our way. I want to remind all the counselors and everybody watching and at home, bricks, our anniversary bricks can be purchased online. They are going, not as fast as I'd like, but hopefully with the advent of the cool weather and Labor Day, people will start getting more engaged. So please encourage everybody out there to get those bricks ordered. If you haven't done it, please do it. Remember, 50% of the proceeds go to support the Sesquicentennial. The other 50% go to support the Monument for the Bells of St. Louis to be permanently displayed at Anniversary Park. I'd like to also recognize this morning, as I was coming out of my driveway at dark 30, Mr. David Griswold from the Forestry Subcommittee, who was out inventorying trees in Auburn. Yes, inventorying thousands and thousands of trees. He told me he has accomplished, all volunteering of his time, 2,300 trees inventoried. Species, location, age, size. It's a huge project that was paid for by a grant because his and other volunteer hours have been utilized instead of grant dollars. There's now enough money to plant a substantial number of trees in our downtown. I'm looking forward to that. I'm not going to say anything else because it's their announcement to make, but we are looking forward to that. So thank you, Mr. Griswold, if you're watching. Awesome job, and thanks for doing it. And lastly, that's actually it. That's it. I'm sorry, that was a very long report. We have a lot of stuff coming up, and as back to school starts, please be safe out there driving. Kids are going back to school. They're going back early this year. So I guess every year lately they go back early. So thank you very much, and we're going to move on to the next on the list, which is the city manager's report. No, I'm sorry, city council report. Start off with Councilor Young.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There'll be a variety show at the Danville Junction Grange. That's 15 Grange Street in Danville, Maine, part of Auburn. It will be on Sunday, August 26, and it'll be at 3 o'clock. It says admission will be $4, and they'll also be selling pie and more refreshments. Plus, there'll be a raffle. I don't know anything about the raffle, but they said that that's what they say in the ad. This last Sunday, one of my team members from Maine Running Photos covered a event in Norwich Walk. Corporal Cole, you've probably seen a lot about that in the newspapers and TV and whatever. Let me see, Robert Cunningham from outside of Bangor, BZ, went down to Norwich Walk and took some excellent pictures and posted them on Maine Running Photos on Facebook. And I didn't even know he was going to be there, but I thank him for being there. And the timing was done by our retired fireman, Mr. Cobb, or the Cobb family, and there they have a timing service called Back 40 Timing. So that was a little bit of Auburn connection there, roundabout. And I guess it was quite a big event. I don't know if any of you people were there or not, but if you want to find out more information, just go to the mainrunningphotos.com. We have a link to the photos, and I'll get up some more information about who was there and whatever as reports come in. And I also spent some time in OOB, and it was kind of comical. I said I was up at the top of the hill in Old Orchard, and I was about 8 minutes into the race with video and photos. I said, I've got to get to the finish line. And a guy that was on a committee, I guess it was one of the zoning boards or something, he says, that's no problem. I'll take you there. I said, do you have a car? No, I'm going to go with you. And I said, well, there's no place to park down there. Oh, no, just go, I'll handle it. So we go down there and we get to the police offices where they get the road blocked off, and he said, we're the photographers. We got to get to the start line. Oh, go right ahead.
I'm going to remember that trick. That might work. Where are you going, Mr. Mayor? I'm a photographer for something.
Just show me you have a camera and you have Maine Running Photos on your shirt. And a guy from the local guy that had some pull but that was better than the city manager's poll, I guess. It was just maybe I'll be able to do some planning, get a regular permit next time.
Maybe. Councilor Zani?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last Thursday, August 16th, I had the privilege of attending a naturalization ceremony at Lewiston Public Library, where 40 people from 16 countries, including Bulgaria, China, El Salvador, Georgia, the country of Georgia, Jamaica, Iraq, Ukraine, UK, Vietnam, South Africa, Democratic Republic of Congo, among others, became U.S. citizens. And it was an incredibly heartening ceremony to see people who had fought so hard to get to this country and had worked so hard to become citizens. Also, Edward Little High School is partnering with Healthy Androscoggin to provide a 2-hour curriculum to all students who participate in extracurricular activities. So that includes not only the athletes, but any after-school activity. It's new, and it's mandatory for all students. The curriculum was developed with input from Edward Little High School students and the athletic director, Todd Sampson, and it focuses on health effects of tobacco, alcohol and marijuana, as well as resiliency building and decision-making skills. And that's one of the things that I thought was really interesting. It's called Consider This, so it's not telling students what they need to think about how these different substances affects their performance, but it's asking them to think for themselves how it affects their performances. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hayes?
I was pleased that the balloons got off yesterday evening, and I guess I was pleased too to see the amount of traffic, even though most of the activity was on the Lewiston side. There was a lot of traffic through Auburn. Parked in the parking garage and had to head up to an upper level for parking. I think walking down towards Grady's to get out on the deck and look across the river. There's a lot of people on the sidewalk. Looking across, it seemed like the parking lot on the other side was full. People were lined up on the bridge, of course. So I think even though, I know there was some comments that it seemed like now it's a Lewiston event, it's still a community event. And even though we don't maybe have a lot of concessions on the street, I think it's healthy for our existing businesses. They have their doors open every day. They were filled. And I think they saw the uptick of business during that weekend activity. So I think that, again, we're one community. I think if we have something going here, if Lewiston has something going, it's good for us all.
Councilor Titus?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'll start by saying that tomorrow at 4 o'clock, the Auburn Sewer Trustees will be meeting at the district office, and on Wednesday the water trustees will be meeting 4 o'clock in the same office Wednesday. All are welcome, and I sent every one of you an agenda and what's going on for both of these meetings, but please, if you have any concerns, please let me know before I attend the meetings, or even after for that matter. The other thing I did want to bring up to kind of dovetail on what Councilor Hayes was saying, I was really impressed with, what's going on with these different events, but I guess what I'd like to be able to see is more, go back to reporting of, Auburn's investment when there's an event like this that comes on, and then what we get in return. But mostly knowing what our planning is up to that. Maybe we can do more to help capitalize and take advantage of these events. We have, obviously, we have the 4th of July, we have the Dempsey, we have the Balloon Festival, a lot of things that I see more and more of staying on one side of the river and not the other. And I certainly think we have the opportunity to do more through promotion, through event planning, deciding what we want to do to celebrate the event. And the Summerfest that just got over too. I'd like to see some reporting on what we spent and kind of the results of people and attendance. I know we were a host sponsor of that Make-A-Wish, and I was glad to see that. I hope that that continues to grow, and if Auburn wants to kind of embrace that, let's embrace more of that, because that can be something that's truly our own, and it's a very worthy cause. But the problem is I don't think we get enough reporting back on what's going on and what the results were. We have a great rec advisory board, actually it's a committee, that could help with planning and maybe report back to us as well. It's a volunteer committee that we don't hear anything from to speak of. So there's a lot of things we can do to help capitalize on these events. They're great, and I love to see them, but I think that we can do more pretty easily, because there it is. The people are there, the crowds are there, and I don't know that we do enough, but I don't know because I haven't seen it.
ROI.
And also ROI, absolutely. And also I just want to congratulate Phil and welcome aboard and find that we have a lot of fun in this particular arm of our government. Thank you.
A little complicated.
Fun, that's a choice word right there.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, and moving on, Councilor Fournier.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have not had a school committee meeting in a few weeks. However, tomorrow, Wednesday, the 22nd, at 7 o'clock, there'll be the first official regular school committee meeting. And also, at that meeting, there will be a first reading of the educational specifications for the ELHS plans. That's all I have for school. And the second report I have is for the Library Board of Trustees. We had our Board of Trustees meeting last Tuesday, and then it's usually at 7:30 in the morning, but then following that at 10 o'clock we had our walkabout, which our city manager joined us with Eric Cousins and Michael Chammings, and also the Dan Goyette. We had also our engineer. And looking at potential, ways to have some potential parking and not to lose so many parking places. But the one thing that the Board of Trustees was adamant about was that they do not want to lose any green space, because when we took a look at the green space that was going to be cut into to create more parking, there would be really literally no green space left at all. So we're still in the process of working that out. Right, Mr. Manager? Yes. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. So we had various scenarios, but now we're going to still work it. And we're not rushing into it because we just need to know that we have a plan in place. So talk about maybe part of the strategic plan. It's probably part of the strategic plan, actually, to find parking places for the library because of the many events that they hold. Not only that, everything that's building around it, additional businesses, they're looking for places to park as well. So that's basically what we did last week, and we have really nothing to report other than the desire is not to lose green space. And tomorrow, 21st of Tuesday the 21st, at 2:30, we'll be having a first parade meeting, official parade meeting, to talk about the Memorial Day Parade and what that is going to look like as part of the 150th celebration. We're pretty excited about that. So a lot of ideas will be forthcoming for that meeting. Thank you.
Councilor Walker.
Thank you very much. I'd like to report that as chair of the Agent Friendly Committee, we are going to have an important meeting tomorrow night at Pettingill Park at the Senior Community Building. Now, we will be discussing that building probably more than anything else tomorrow night, hoping that people have some thoughts, ideas, how to grow the building, meaning what can we do with it, what can we bring for the future to the building. Is it in the right place, being at Pettingill Park? And, you know, all of the above. So if you'd like to be there tomorrow night to help us out, 5:30 is the time. And it'll go as long as people want to talk about it, and then we'll all go on our merry way, I guess. Also, this Thursday coming, I will be at the 6th Street Congregational Church at 6:30. We have a neighborhood watch meeting. The Auburn Police Department always partner with us to bring ideas, thoughts, and if we do have any problems in the New Auburn area, to your attention. So please show up at the 6th Street Congregational Church, 5:30, no, 6:30, I got to get it right. 6:30 this Thursday night. Following Tuesday, which will be, I'm sorry, I got our date wrong. 23rd is our date, I believe, at the church, Thursday night. And then the 28th will be at the United New Auburn Association at Rowley's Diner, 6 o'clock. I'm hoping that our assistant manager of Auburn now, Mr. Phil Crow, will be able to be there and talk about his new position and his great retirement that he is on now. He had a great vacation, so he's ready to go. Thank you. That's all I have.
2 days. 2 days. That was pretty good. And on that, just there's been some comment and talk about committees and action and so forth. I just want to call out the mayoral ad hoc committee on aging under Councilor Gary and Councilor Walker have in just a few short months helped Auburn become an AARP certified city. They're moving on action on planning for additional senior activities, facilities, utilization. I got to tell you, probably more work has come out, more results has come out of that committee than I've seen in any other committee, no offense, in quite a long time. So, you know, don't all lose hope. It can be done, and I think we have a great example, and I want to thank you two for making that get pushed forward and good stuff come out of it. So, Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was a meeting scheduled for the public input for the senior center. Any senior resident of Auburn or any interested party was supposed to meet for a meeting on the 28th of this month, but that has been postponed and bumped into the future in September. So if anyone got a handout saying we're going to have a strategic meeting, it's not going to happen this month, but look for posters and things going up and flyers to say when it will be, where it will be, which will be at the senior center. What the meeting entails is, first of all, we'd like to have a tour of the building, what we have and what we propose for the future. We'd want your input to see if that makes sense, what we'd like to see. We'd like to know what you'd like to see. We'd like to see what your vision is for the senior community center, because it's not just going to be a senior center, it is for the community as well. Our age-friendly is not, what we're trying to do is establish a protocol that revolves around seniors, but it takes in all ages and how they age through the different process, how youngsters interact with seniors and seniors with the younger folks, with how teens can help seniors with different light chores, and how seniors can be their mentors. Same as adults and seniors, how they interact. What we want to do is unite our community and fill in the gaps. Auburn is fortunate. We have a lot of services for the seniors that other municipalities and towns don't have. What I'd like to see, our vision is to fill in the gaps so that if a person doesn't qualify for a service, that they can contact us and we can try to figure a way to fill that gap. And that's what my goal is. And I do thank the mayor for putting me on the committee. And even though I get disgruntled with Council Walker, he's very hard working and he's dedicated. He just got to learn that we're a tag team, that we got to work together. That's our only.
There will
thing.
be no time for rebuttal. Your time is up, Councilor Walker. Thank you, Councilor Gary.
Mr. Mayor, could I have Councilor Gary report on the, since she has the floor, on the nomination committee? We did meet last Monday.
Thank you, good Councilor Young. The appointment committee met last week for a special meeting to find out, well, I guess it was a scheduled meeting, and that's the drag of it. We have different openings on various committees, but we don't have people to fill in those committees, so that's the drag part of it. We met last week to discuss one sole appointee that's not part of our appointment process due to charter. The fifth member is appointed by the school committee and the councils on the the councils, two councils that are on the committee for the audit and review thing. And so we're referring this one applicant to them for their consideration, but I don't have the paperwork in front of me, so I can't give you the name of this one individual. It's not to say that other people can't put in applications, or you and the school committee, Councilor Hayes, can't find another person to add to the list of good candidates, but it's your germane purview to pick whom you guys want to work with.
So we have a reason to meet.
It's the audit committee, when they meet, when they have a meeting, they can vote for their own nominees.
We have an applicant that wants to be on your committee.
The audit committee hasn't been in quite some time. If memory serves me correct.
2 months, maybe a month and a half. Yeah,
Okay.
we met not too long ago.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We're going to move on to city manager's report at this time.
Could I just make one announcement in terms of that?
Of course.
We did receive a comprehensive list from Sue Clemens Delaire, and I know you sent it via anybody who is a member of the Alert Me, notifications, right? Is there another way that you can get it out to the public so the public knows what all of these are? Because there's quite a comprehensive list there, and I don't think everybody sees them.
Yeah, I actually forwarded the notice to the chamber, the library, to see if they could post as well. It's going to be posted on Facebook, yeah, it's on the website. And I also notified some of the media, Sun Journal, Twin City Times, and
Great. So you listening folks out there, there are many places for you to look for this information if you're interested at all. Thank you.
I think it's we're just having a quick sidebar, and I want to bring you all in. I think it's time to look at exploring bringing back some direct mail directly to residents' homes. So I think we're going to look at that a little bit. We'll report back in the next council meeting. Because yes, you do a great job in every nook and cranny outside of that, and there is a cost. There might be a way for us to get it discounted and selective. So just to bring that up. Okay, moving on to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Phil, welcome aboard as the Assistant City Manager. It's already been mentioned, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. Thank you for accepting the position, and look forward to working with you. All of us do. Got a great team. We're only going to get stronger. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. I also want to mention that we're doing an appreciation event for our employees. We have an employee barbecue September 7th. That's from 12 to 2. As a result of that, city offices will be closed during that period of time from 12 to 2, so the employees can participate. And it's going to be at the Municipal Beach. Also, I want to follow up on what the mayor said about the Legislative Policy Committee of the MMA. There are other communities that have 2 votes, for example, the city of Lewiston, because of their population and the way that the criteria works. What's unusual about this situation is Auburn has one vote, and we were able to get a second vote because there was a vacancy in the Senate district, and I wrote myself in. The council approved that, and no one objected among the municipalities. So we're going to have two votes for the City of Auburn at the Legislative Policy Committee meetings. Another topic I want to mention briefly, we are implementing LED lighting, as you know. We have some councilors that have come to me with a request for street lights for constituents. We have one more week that we can entertain that because of the schedule that we have in the LED lighting. So for all the councilors, if there are any other constituents that you have, residents that would like to make a request for street lights, let me know or let Phil know. Also, I just want to put out early announcement on the search for Auburn's next Christmas tree. It's going to be on our website.
No, stop.
Sounds early?
No.
You don't want to think about it.
Labor Day, come on.
You don't want to think about it. And lastly, there is an LATC stakeholder meeting that is going to be at AvCog on September 20th at 10 a.m. That's a meeting that Councilor Gary was talking about earlier, where the Lewiston Auburn Transit Committee is going to be inviting stakeholders in. We have a working group that we've formed, and we're going to be talking with them about what's happening with bus service and whether they have an interest in being involved in the bus service and perhaps helping to fund the bus service. So I'll talk about that more in the future. Thank you very much.
Very good. I'm not going to open up the last open session of the night. Members of the public are invited to speak to the council about any issue directly related to city business, which is not on the agenda. Okay. Nobody wants to speak? I will now close the open session. There are two executive sessions tonight. The first is regarding a personal matter pursuant to 1 MRS Section 405(6)A. Do I have a motion to enter into the first executive session?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Fournier and a second from Councilor Walker. All those in favor? Abstain? Oppose? None being? We're now in executive session by vote of 7-0.
Oh, no, really? Yeah, I noticed mine's changed too.
That's what I'm like.
Oh, we're on, are we? Yeah, I don't see the on-air light yet, but
This later.
And did everybody leave on our account?
Yeah.
I think so.
Testing, testing. We're ready to go live now.
Full light though.
You're not supposed to make this fun.
I know, no more fun. No more laughing, no more fun.
Isn't that a nursery rhyme? No more
Yeah,
laughing,
yeah,
no more
it's-
fun, no more tubby time or something.
Something like Quaker Meeting has begun.
We might be
Nothing, no
on.
more fun.
I could take a light. We could go on air anytime. Oh, you didn't?
No, we're not.
Might be.
There's no light. Wanna go with us?
Cows around here.
I says, holy cow. He said, no cows around here.
Oh, so we're going to on air the whole time? Oh, jeez. Okay, we're now out of executive session. Next, we have an item regarding economic development. Pursuant to 1 MRS Section 405, 6A, do I have a motion to enter into the second executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilor Fournier and a second from Councilor Walker. All those in favor? Okay, opposed, abstained, none being, we're in executive session.
guess they wanted us to
Probably use
see,
that for the rest.
who was gonna be green and who was gonna be.
Okay, we're on the air now. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'll declare council out of executive session. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilor Forney and a second from Councilor Walker. All those in favor say aye.
Aye, Captain.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Meeting is now adjourned.
Yeah, that's just to show you.